going to just do one hearing. And the city of San Francisco wrote to the EPA and said, there is no way you can do this with one hearing. You need to have hearings across the country. And for some unknown reason to me, they listened and said, fine, we'll have a hearing in San Francisco. I don't know what their thinking is. But it's going to be at the main library on February 28th. I think it would send a message of urgency, not only to Trump, and frankly, that's not a person who's got ears for it, but at least to our city and our political leaders that we think this is worth coming out for. I mean, it wasn't lost on our elected leaders when people came out over the divestment issue. That was not lost, that sense of urgency and outrage. Can we mobilize that sense of urgency as well, because that's what's going to allow people to take risks politically, is when they know that that's what we expect from them, and from me. You expect it from me.
And I guess I'm kind of split between saying, well, gosh, there's a lot of great legislation out there in the state this year. There's SB 100, which is for 100% renewable energy, mandates it for the state. There's AB 1745, which is about outlawing the registration of new internal combustion engines by 2040. There's this, there's that, there's lots. So there's the kind of legislative side, which is like, yeah, let's go do all of that. And then there's a part of me that just feels like, you know, from the heart, I've got to figure out how we can talk to each other and say, let's do this. Let's just do it, whatever that means, however we have to do it. Because, you know, like this woman here said, I didn't hear about this. You know, we all got to be talking about this, but I think we're in a position where, you know, it's scary, and so if you talk about it really kind of in a scary way, people, you know, I'm not going to talk to her again, you know. So how is it that I can show my heart about this? You know, this is our planet. This is not something trivial. How can we move ahead here?
Okay, now I've got several people with their hands up. You were next, then you, and then the gentleman in the corner who hasn't spoken yet.
I have two questions. I'm a high school teacher, and for some of the reasons you were talking about feeling like I'm not having enough effect, I'm retiring at the end of the year. But meanwhile, I teach at McAteer campus, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 building roofs, massive roofs that face south, and we've been trying for 17 years now to get solar.
Really?
Yeah. We have, and they keep telling us, the district keeps telling us, well, we have free energy because all of our energy comes from Hetchy, but my students know that all the energy to be run means there's water. If it's been used, it's gone then. So
that is we have a water first system.
we want to know how to get solar in places that can obviously. I mean, we're at the top of the canyon. We've got great solar setup there. We don't have solar. And we could easily really supply the entire neighborhood, if not more. And my second question is for my students. They want to know what they can do. So I've been taking notes, and I'm going to tell them all.
Okay, this is going to be quick. You don't get to do a lecture. You do a quick thing, which is why can't you get solar in our high school, and what should we have the students do?
Yeah.
You move first, Tucker.
Well, you may have to do this in coffee break in case you don't want to do an election.
Yeah, no, I'm going to tell them.
Okay.
That's fine. That's easy.
I think you should take them to the listening session. I think it runs from 8:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
They could go down there and take a stand.
Yeah.
Debbie?
I would love to work with you with getting solar on McAteer. I have no idea, you know, how we're going to do it, but you're so right. And then if we get battery storage with it, then you're an incredible resilience center.
We actually have space for it because we were a nuclear bomb shelter. So we were building.
Actually, that might be very helpful right now.
Now remember, we're going quick so we can get everyone's time in. Okay, now remind me, you were next, and then the gentleman in the corner.
Yeah, I've been an activist most of my life, and I always try to bring the addition to the problem. and I presented this at the Soil and Oil Conference. I've been putting it forth for about 6 years. So the Palace of Fine Arts is part of the World Exposition, and we really rose from the ashes with that World's Fair. And if we want to be leadership, which is the problem here, what is our leadership, we could turn the Palace of Fine Arts into an art and regeneration center in which we could be a world-class leader demonstrating, like the Exploratorium was, all of the different projects and the latest innovations. We could have school children, as this woman mentioned, come and learn. We could have parolees trained in green jobs. We could have artist installations. It was all art for the environment and upcycling and recycling being used as materials. And we could make ourselves leaders by bringing people from all over the world and staying at the cutting edge. And like the Exploratorium was rotating exhibits, we could make this a place. I also presented to Real Goods. They love the idea. It is a way to be visionary, exciting, beautiful. That place is gorgeous. We rose from the ashes. The latest proposals by our wonderful Rec the Park department was 2 hotels, private hotels, and a police and firemen's museum.
Okay, we're gonna pause there, because we're not doing Rec and Park today. We're doing greenhouse gas emissions. We're moving on, which is, and I'm gonna just aim this at
That
Debbie.
magic dress is a Greek goddess. She wore a gown, tunic.
Thanks, Lotus. Debbie, what do you think? I think that's an interesting idea to have a really public face of our commitment to
Yeah, no, I think it's a
generation.
lovely idea, and we just have to figure out how we go from wonderful idea to something with groundbreaking with funding, and not to say that's it's obviously a barrier, but we just have to.
So we already own. So the people
No,
own the
right,
Palace of
that's
Fine
right.
Arts.
So,
Wait, Mom.
fabulous.
Okay, the gentleman in back.
I heard a lot about like finance and politics and investments and divestment, so I'm just curious. I've been really in the divestment space lately, and I feel, Bill McKibben had an op-ed, and the line that stuck out with me is finance, not politics. Could be the soft underbelly of climate, and it feels like even though it is politics that's holding it back, it's because of finance, right? The influence of finance, so that's the underbelly. So I'm just curious, there's right now talks about SF creating a municipal bank, and that would essentially divest $10 billion from Wall Street.
Bernie Pratt.
What's that?
Are you Bernie Pratt?
Yes. Where I'm getting at is, as far as being a leader and addressing the urgency, it seems like divesting $10 billion from our current bank, Bank of America, which from 2014 to 2016 invested $13 billion in fossil fuels, could not only show SF as a leader, but lay the blueprint for the rest of the country on how to actually combat climate change. And it's not an and or, I totally agree, we need to do all the work that we're doing. But I'm just curious about the panel about divestment as a real tactic to be included as battling climate change, and how effective will that be?
Elena, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, well, 350's been on
Right,
that
yeah.
for a while,
Yeah.
and, it's been a tough fight, I would
Right.
say. And I think the oil industry just has so much clout.
But do you think a municipal bank would help climate?
Anyway, we can keep money out of their hands and put it into our hands, good idea.
Aaron Peskin has threatened
Lotus,
to dissolve
Lotus.
the retirement board. He did, he said that.
So Lotus,
Last
do
meeting.
me a favor, let me moderate, thanks. So then that's a divestment. Anybody else want to throw input on that?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. Our Commission on the Environment supported it. Our commissioners themselves went out in place. I have to say with New York City and New York State, we spoke to people there before, and it's not a done deal. So the mayor of New York said we are going to do this, but it would be like Mayor Lee saying it too. The actual board has to vote to do it. So I think we have to keep that pressure on here to make it happen, and the idea of a municipal bank is certainly an interesting one.
I'm not taking questions right now. I'm going to ask a question. Do you have anything on divestment?
I think it is super important in terms of optics, because cities who are suing about climate change are getting accused of hypocrisy, because because they're invested in the fossil fuels. So I'm not quite sure that there's an economic leverage there, but regardless, you can't have it both ways, and San Francisco's right now having it both ways, and we're gonna get called out on it, and so I think we gotta move on it.
Okay, so I do want to go back. I know a lot of you guys have a lot of wonderful things to say, but I have to do my job up here too. So one thing I'd like to go back to is kind of like where the key buttons are. So we've talked in some cases about things that are happening at the state level. So if we want to do something about Uber and Lyft, we have to go to the Public Utilities Commission, which is headquartered here in San Francisco. And we want to have all electric vehicles, and right now the power to do that rests at the state level. So tell me kind of, if you can, what some of those state levers are that they're either helping or hindering you, and how they might move forward. And Elena, if you want to start, you're welcome to.
Well, I already mentioned some of the upcoming legislation, SB 100 for renewable energy, AB 1745. Just remember these numbers, you will be tested afterwards. AB 1745, which is about electric vehicles. Nancy Skinner has suggested and is proposing legislation that all of the ride-hailing should be electric. So there's a lot of stuff out there. What hinders? Why didn't the governor outlaw fracking, for example? You know, I mean, there's plenty of things that hinder.
Let's kind of not call it fracking, let's call it enhanced oil recovery. It's more than, no, it's just more than just fracking. So if you just outlaw fracking, you don't get rid of the problem. Okay.
It sounds too nice.
Anyone?
I
Yeah.
want to come back to something that Elena said, because I think she put her finger on it. She talked about how there's, even here in San Francisco, people don't see it as an urgent thing. And that's actually the nut of the political problem, not just here in San Francisco, but statewide and across the country. And you see it in the polls. You ask people, do you care about climate change? You want us to move? They say yes. And then you ask them to rank the top 20 issues that are the most important for the President and the Congress this year. Climate change is consistently the last, the least important. And so I think, that's why conversations like these are really important. Because, quite frankly, until people get head up, until they get their knickers in a twist, nothing's going to happen. And so I think the opportunity to do that at the state level is in the governor's race. The same litmus test that we should be demanding of people running for the mayor, we should be demanding of the next governor. And quite frankly, we get all these Democrats that are vying to show who's more progressive. This is a great way for them to actually separate themselves from the pack.
So being a professional water person, we have the luxury of having these droughts, and we've had more drought than normal years in the last 15 years. So I'm lucky that we always have that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And so what is the drought? What is the push? I would think that seeing 10% of my hometown burn down in October would have been a little push for people. But we'll see. I was born and raised in San Francisco. So I mean, what is that? What is the drought that's gonna move people forward? And can it be something that isn't catastrophic, but is just shocking? I would think that the hurricanes last year, the fires.
You're thinking we've had enough, but we haven't.
I think so too. So I've got a question here and then one in the back. Ma'am.
Well, I was very intrigued by this idea of SFTC basically generating its own electricity. And one of the things that I've been thinking about for a long time is that there was actually a lot of flat roofs in San Francisco that could host solar panels. And a lot of those belong to businesses, and they would possibly benefit from having solar panels and being sources of generation. It could be a profit center for them. And so I've been thinking about making a project out of that now with SFTC, possibly getting that authority. It makes sense that they might actually utilize this territory that's within San Francisco to do it.
So the SFTC Citizens Advisory Committee has subcommittees for their different enterprises, one of which is a power subcommittee. So you should go on the website and look up their meetings. It's either the first or second
You
Tuesday.
should become a member of it.
Yeah,
You are so articulate on this stuff.
okay, back to the room.
Okay, I actually have 3 things to say really quick. One, could we get a ballot initiative in the next election to divest from fossil fuels in this city. I think there would be the political will if we're on the ballot to talk about, among voters. I also think with regard to the hurricanes and the wildfires and everything else, it seems so obvious to those of us who think about it, but they're not actually making a very clear link in most of the press that this is climate change. People will say, oh, it was all the fire suppression efforts, from past bad management, or oh, it's this or it's that, or oh, it's just too much building, oh, we're encroaching. No, it's also climate change. And then it spearheads an army. So we're not making that argument enough, and it's not top of mind for way too many people. Third, there was an article last fall in, I think it was in the New York Times, maybe in the LA Times, but it was about actually a solar plant in Southern California and how they at peak times actually have to pay Arizona to take the excess solar generated electricity out of the grid.
That's right.
How much do we
Negative
not know
pricing.
this? And then we're walking around, we're paying Arizona to take the power we're generating in this state and acting as though we can't convert to renewable energy. It's ludicrous. And when the cockroaches evolve and look back at this one day after we turned ourselves off.
Battery even your electric
Insane.
vehicle can be a battery storage
Yes.
unit.
So one of the
Yes.
things that is not yet at the state that needs to be a game changer, and maybe it's a bill and I don't know the number of the bill, is we need an incentive program for battery storage. We need to create the same incentive structures that we did for solar and for electric vehicles for battery. And that negative pricing, what you're talking about, is the perfect example of what a waste, right? And it also disincentivizes new solar because they're afraid they won't be able to sell in the middle of the day when they have the most solar. So there's lots of power in battery storage, and if I had to say one thing that I wished for right now, it's the ability to massively increase the use of batteries.
San Francisco famously did a $100 million bond for solar back in the day that helped jumpstart financing for solar.
Yeah.
Seems like maybe something for storage.
For storage.
Because at the end of the day, what we've learned from wind and solar is that it's not more R&D that's made these things drop in price like flat panel TVs. It's deployment.
Yeah.
It's just building them. The short story of how come wind and solar are so damn cheap right now, Germany placed the purchase orders, China built the factories,
Thank you.
and the price of solar panels plummeted through the floor. That's the big story, and so we need to do the same thing with storage.
Other fifth question?
Yes, I guess this is specifically for you, Debbie.
Yeah.
What is the people who are in charge of like marketing and the campaigns for SF Environment? The reason I found this event was actually through Facebook, which I'm like, yay. But a lot of the things you guys have all been talking about, I've never seen or heard of, like the bills passing, and I wonder, is there a barrier where SF Environment is not allowed to talk about certain political things or promote this? Because I would love to hear about it. And when you said later this month there's going to be that hearing, which is something I know a lot of people, I just graduated last year from San Francisco State Environmental Studies, they would love to go to that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But all I see about is like compost and don't throw your buds in the
Important
garbage.
stuff.
Yeah, it is important.
Before Devin answers this, I think this is one of the things that I wanted to focus on as an outcome, which is this is our second go-round having Sierra Club and 350 and SF Environment team up to talk about this subject. And something to think about is how do we combine our skills and resources to raise the level?
So the answer to your question is, on one example, like on the bills, we as a city department can't take, we have to get permission from the mayor's office. It has to be a city opinion about a bill, and once we have that blessing as a city, then we can start educating on it, but we can't advocate. In terms of something like the Clean Power hearing, we're going to start. We just haven't gotten there yet, but we're trying to figure out how to best get the word out on that. So you just heard early days announcement.
Go to the advocates, 350 SF, Sierra Club, we have lists of events. Go to 350 Bay Area, you'll see there's
But I
events.
think-
And your point is super well taken, that our website is designed for emphasizing certain things of where our funding is and where we spend our time. And on the climate space and creating the urgency around that, I don't think we've done enough.
I would say also nonprofits tend not to have strong media arms. So I think that's something we can do, but we don't necessarily push as much as we should. So maybe something our nonprofits can do is kind of create our GHG manifesto for San Francisco and push it out. So maybe that's an outcome from here. Now, here, and then I saw Lotus's hand up, and then in the back. Gentleman who has asked a question.
Me first?
You first.
Just two things. One is that Reckitt Park currently has plans to destroy 18,500 trees in parks in San Francisco, and that's really a concern because of the carbon that they store and will be releasing once they're killed. The other, so that was something somebody else had brought up. The other thing is the methane from animal agriculture is way more serious than the carbon dioxide that is given off by the animal agriculture department. Animal agriculture industry. So by urging people to cut back on their consumption of animals and animal products could have a huge impact on the health of the planet.
So I would say on the tree issue, we actually did an analysis of that I had my staff do that because it's a little misleading to 18,000 and there's trees being planted, so it's actually a very interesting carbon balance. And we're going to be talking about that at our next policy committee meeting of the Commission on the Environment, which is like March 14th. So if you'd like to come to that meeting, I'd love you to come and then you could hear what my staff found and then have some discussion. And then on the methane with the meat, yeah, and in fact, our last gathering that we had, this issue came up because it's a super challenge to figure out how to get people off their meat.
You've been for 7 years.
Exactly, which is why you brought it up. So yes, you've got it solved for you, we just have that.
And I have solar panels.
So any other comments up here on that? Okay, Lotus and then the gentleman back.
The contradiction that all human beings have, Jerry Brown is hosting this Global Climate Action Summit, but his partnership of California with China,
Yeah.
because he has committed going to China, and then I see him every Chinese New Year at the New Year's banquet, and he makes that same pitch that we are partners in tackling this issue. And so battery storage, Chinese do this. I go to Harvard in the spring and they bring these climate storage companies to recruit the East Coast foreign students to go back to China and work on battery storage. Okay, and as you know, the political environment for both China and Russia is they can't do anything good, right? I mean, these are communist parties and socialist countries or whatever, but there are technical capabilities available, including high-speed rail, including the electric bus company down in Lancaster. They came up and demonstrated the bus to Muni. Muni didn't even so much give them a phone call or a letter.
So Lotus, question. Did you have a question?
Well, I just think that Jerry does see the potential for China, California, and global cooperation. Like you say, the technology's there.
And the good news is that Muni did write a grant to the state for 9 of those buses.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really hoping that they get that grant and that those buses are on the road and there is no problem with them and then done, we're going to procure them.
So we're working on it. Actually, in the back.
Yeah, I had a question, there's a little more focus too on the buses that you said, you talked about the grant that was being written, applying to the state. Does the city not have control over what they buy for their transportation?
Oh, they absolutely do. And Tim, do you want to talk about that?
Well, currently Muni, it is, as Debbie mentioned, could be a global pioneer in moving hundreds of thousands of people across the city in sort of equitable and affordable and safe.
They're already doing it in China, they're installing hundreds of thousands of electric buses, so I don't understand what.
Let them finish, please. Once you ask the question, you
The
understand.
infrastructure that was sort of built when Muni was first brought around, when there weren't any of these batteries, we have this huge overhead wire network. That we have all of our facilities were built around repairing that. And so sort of turning that ship has taken Muni some time to really start looking at the batteries. And it really does come down to batteries because the city has a lot of topography, we need to be moving people every day, and so there wasn't a whole lot of confidence 10 years ago when we buy these hundreds of vehicles in a batch, that batteries were really the right move for us. And so I think we've come around where there is that confidence in the leadership at MTA, that the technology is there, that we can safely move people over all of these hilly routes every day. And I think this pilot test that we're gonna see, if we get this pilot 7-9 vehicles, will help us understand how we can potentially sort of go to the next level with electric vehicles. But it has been a slow process. But I think we're getting very close, and we're seeing the commitment from leadership at Muni to move in this direction. But I think going back to Debbie's other slide, Muni is only 2% of the sector's emissions. We've really got to focus on that 98% of where emissions come from in the transportation sector.
And I
That's
think
really
this goes into
cars and
this,
trucks.
I think this goes into a combination of state and local responsibility. So, you know, we have state laws mandating a certain amount of renewables through the airport's program. How does the city build on that or increase the pressure on it? Any thoughts on that? How do we get to 100% renewable before the state requires it?
Well, I mean, we have a stated goal of 100% renewable energy by 2030. I think asking people, so what are we doing on that? How do you know we're going to get there? I think that's great. We've got a goal. Let's ask of each other what is holding us back from getting there.
How do you have some ideas of what's holding us back?
Well, I sound like a broken record. I think these are anybody running for supervisor, anybody running for mayor. I mean, you should say, what's your plan? I mean, seriously look at these great goals. So, like, how are we going to get there? And because 2030 is, 12 years from now. So, I mean, and usually when you plan for capital, you're talking 20 to 30 years. So there's no reason, if you're serious about that goal and you don't have a plan, then you're not serious about that goal. You can't claim to be serious about the goal and not have a plan. You just can't.
And I would point out that San Francisco maintains a 10-year capital plan that's updated every year or every 2 years. So one question is that capital plan based on zero fossil fuel? So that's a really easy ask. Now, you haven't asked a question yet, I don't think, and then to you. And let's take a look at our gentleman. After all.
So, in our neighborhood, they're talking about putting in all these bicycles so that to try to get people out of their cars, which is an effort. So I said, well, why don't we incent those people by why don't you provide electric bicycles? We have hills. I mean, a lot of people, and we have a lot of middle-aged people and older who really don't want to keep bicycling. Make it easy, make it more inclusive. So what is the city doing in terms of providing the electrical
That's
backup?
a great question, and Tim can talk about more about this. But so first, Ford Go Bike has all of those the stations that were in your neighborhood. Yeah. And so now there are some e-bikes, and Ford sees that, so they're going to start rolling out e-bikes as well. So I think your desire is going to be here before you know it. Tim, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another thing MTA is looking at. We want people moving around by bikes as much as they can. And I think as Debbie said, we're now seeing all the providers of the bike share system really wanting to have people have access to electric bikes. So I think there's going to be movement in that direction.
But where's the charging going to come from?
So the charging currently is at the docking station. So if you rent a bike for 6 hours, you would get it out of the dock and it would be charged. And then when you return it, it would just charge there. If you're buying your own e-bike, then I think that you would need to be charging it probably where you lock it up, probably in your garage or in your backyard.
So I'm sorry to just add a little bit more. So are you trying to put those docking stations near companies that already have electricity, or do these stations?
I think that's to be determined. So that is probably what Ford is trying to figure out right now. Where are the docking stations that it's easiest to put electricity into? Yeah. And if in your neighborhood you would like that, and you think that there's some electricity somewhere, I would invite you to give them a call.
So who has the red bikes that just
I can't remember.
recently, and they don't seem to have docking stations.
No, they
seem
don't.
to be-
What is, Tim, what is the
So
name?
that's Jump.
Jump, right.
Yeah, and those are electric. Those they look like mopeds actually.
And that's I think their technology is battery swapping.
Yeah.
They're,
Oh, so they swap out the battery, put it into it?
they're a dockless
Didn't know
Uh-huh.
station.
Yeah,
Dockless.
I've just seen them recently, so they
Yeah,
must be
they're
pretty,
They're very new.
yeah.
Hunter, you wanted to add something on this?
You know, I should have mentioned this earlier, it's not directly on the bikes, but actually there is a nonprofit that's going around the United States and developing basically wartime mobilization transition plans for individual cities. They're saying, you really want to transition in 10 years? Here's how you do it. It's called climate mobilization. They've done a plan for San Francisco. So it's, you know, at least someone's like, you know, and of course it's not really detailed, but at least someone's saying, okay, here are the individual benchmarks. Here's what you do at year 2, here's what you do at year 3, here's what you do at year 4. You know, it doesn't have a lot of the engineering detail, but at least it's saying, if you're serious about making this transition, here's actually the benchmarks that you would use for each one of the different sectors. And they've done a plan for San Francisco. It's called climate mobilization. I don't know much about it, but I thought I'd share that.
And our department is redoing the climate action strategy with the newer technologies to do that same kind of roadmap. So since we're in the process of doing that right now, I would love to look up climate mobilization, see what we can learn.
And you were next.
Yeah, I have a comment that I'm sad to say, but, you know, we're meeting in the mission, we're meeting at a police station. Basically, that excludes the Latino community, because they're not going to come into this police station. So I just feel sad about that, and I feel like we really need to think about if we're going to be in our communities. I work on police brutality. This was occupied for hunger strike, and it's a tragedy that we're sitting in the mission and we're not appealing to the people of the mission. And my question is, I noticed that the slide that came up had the gas burning stove. How are we going to get cooks and chefs and restaurants to not want to use gas when they love gas?
And induction.
Induction ovens are pretty cool.
Well, then we need an education saying, they have to have demonstration that be shown they can cook like they can with gas. Because everyone knows a chef hates electric.
Absolutely.
And doesn't have the control, and there's all the houses and all of the restaurants hate the idea of getting rid of gas for that. So we really need to think about how to change that.
I'm working on a co-housing project right now in the North Bay, and so we said, let's not put gas in it. And the first thing that people said was, no, I gotta have my gas stove.
Well, you should get some top chefs to show how to cook,
Yeah.
you know.
Actually,
Green
even if you
induction,
had
that
to
would
put
really
in gas
work,
for the
you know.
stove usage is very small in relation to heating your home and
Right, I
heating
know,
water.
You know,
So if you had to, but
that's
it would
something
be.
people love,
Yeah.
that they have to change.
I'm happy you brought that up because that was actually the subject I was going to circle around to. And since I work on water, I'm always thinking about pipes and the cost of replacing water pipes and sewer pipes. And it seems to me that gas pipes are something we should be spending money replacing. So how do we create a system whereby PG&E has this plan for pipes that need to be renewed, and instead of being renewed, we take those pipes out of commission and those homes all need to be retrofitted. How does that work? How do we do it? And
There's
what's,
probably
and
already
how does
money
it
for those
cost?
old pipes being replaced, right?
I know for water pipes, it's $2.5 million a month.
It's huge. The price tag for replacing the pipes
Yeah.
in the distribution system is enormous. And PG&E is only allowed to use ratepayer money for certain size leaks, so they have a whole prioritization. There's a whole world of pipe replacement out there, and you're absolutely right. When I talk about the true cost of natural gas, that is exactly the stats and the arguments we're
Yeah, we do have an opportunity with Sonoma and all of those houses that burned in Santa Rosa, and they had a really great fuel of natural gas in their houses, which helped the fire, no doubt. So 350 San Francisco, 350 Sonoma, other people are thinking about, when we rebuild these 5,800 houses that burn, what if we don't put gas in them? That's easy when you're starting.
Yes, it is. That's a
From
new.
new, yeah, it's much harder, yeah.
Hunter, you were about to say something?
Well, I mean, tell me this, by the way, it's a great example of a stranded asset. You know, every single penny that we spend on fossil fuel infrastructure from now on
That's
will be stranded.
Absolutely.
So right now, we're throwing, you know, good money after bad, that the natural gas fire plants that we're building all across the United States right now will have to be retired early, or, you know, warming goes to hell in a handbasket. Those are your two choices. So I like to think that so what we're basically doing is we're screwing ourselves 15 and 20 years down the road, or even 5 or 10 years down the road, when we finally do sort of like wake up and smell the coffee. I do want to come back and just say quickly, my younger son is a senior at Mission High, and he would not come here tonight because he was at the police station. So, and I regularly meet here with the Sierra Club, and it's an issue I'm aware of, and thank you for bringing it up. And we're not going to change overnight, but it's good to flag. Thank you.
We should fill the main library correct auditorium. That's it.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we-
this library, we need to protect.
Yeah, the cops do it for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So.
The main library is much more difficult to preserve than the police stations, but for a good reason. But thanks for bringing it up, and we'll bear that in mind for future meetings.
Appreciate that.
So do we have time for a few more questions or comments in the back?
I want to come back around to my suggestion that we get a ballot initiative. Can you just walk us through how to start that? I mean, I could go look it up, it'd be really easy.
I can do it.
Got me started, that'd be
So
great.
there's two ways to put something on the ballot. Either you get the supervisors to do it, or you collect signatures. So it's always faster to get the supervisors to do it. For the November ballot, they need to introduce it no later than, I think, the first week in June. If you're collecting signatures, you've got to you have to have a lawyer put together your language, you have to go to the city attorney and get it vetted and approved, then you get cleared for circulation, then you have to, I'm trying to remember what the number of signatures you get. It's some percentage of the last presidential election. And
You have to get way more than that. because
Yeah.
they won't all be-
yeah, and you have to collect about 50% more. You have to turn those in by, I think, about mid-July. So the good thing about doing a signature drive is you find out just how many galvanized volunteers you have. It really helps you jumpstart your campaign. But on the other hand, I'm kind of lazy and I like to just kind of go beg my supervisors to do what I want them to do. So again, I think we have you need 4 supervisors to put most initiatives on the ballot. If you're introducing a change to the city's charter, you need 6 supervisors.
While we're at it, when the Blue Angels perform, they use a lot of oil that's very expensive. And you need 4 supervisors to uninvite the Blue Angels.
That's very good.
Remember when they uninvited themselves a few years back? Remember that?
It's also dangerous.
Yeah.
Right here, we have somebody, just to say, someone raises their hand is always going to get my attention first. There
I
you
just
go.
wanted to mention that there's an organization called Cool Block. They're at www.coolblock.org. And I had gotten involved with them a couple
And
years
who
ago.
are they?
It's an organization that they provide resources that you can get people on your block to make changes over a 4 or 6 month period in their own homes, and it helps a neighborhood to come together to all help each other. Should there be a natural disaster, but it also helps people to make sure that people have to change like their light bulbs or to get low flow toilets and shower heads, and it just all kinds of different things that people can do locally to make a huge impact. And it was a pilot project in LA, Palo Alto, and San Francisco. I just think it's a really great resource that should
How
be
do you
utilized.
spell it?
Cool Block, COOLBLOC. I can talk to you offline a lot about Cool Block. So
In a good way?
I'm not concerned. For the right audience, for honestly, for white English speakers, like in Palo Alto and Davis, where they did really well, it worked really well. When we piloted it here, the authors of it were not willing to be flexible in the way the materials were put together. There's no translation. So it's, and I get that for you and your block, it's spoken, it has really good information, but that's just why as a department, we didn't bring it back beyond the pilot. It just felt hard to make it work for San Francisco, and the authors of it were not interested in adjusting it.
And I think that brings brings us to another issue, which is, you know, we're a pretty wide audience here and we're not a white city. So, and I have to say that I live in a pretty mixed building and everyone's really good at saving energy, saving water, recycling. So the commitment is there across the city. But are we communicating appropriately to everyone in all the different audiences we have in the city?
So I mean, I can talk a lot about what we do in our department. I'm incredibly proud of our web presence and our translation. It's deep translation. I'm really proud of the work we do with small businesses to give them assistance in language and to create a microloan program for small businesses who can't even afford the copay. What I'm really interested in is something you brought up earlier, which is how do we work more together to reach out? Because we just had an example at our commission where we worked with 350.org and 350 Bay Area on the divestment issue. And it was awesome because we had all this technical help from 350 to help us train me and on what the issues are around divestment, to bring us speakers. I mean, it was really a very powerful relationship, and we got a wonderful commission resolution out of it. We got
But why did it fail?
Oh, well, that's a much deeper thing. I mean, the Commission on the Environment wasn't enough to put it over, that the whole Board of Supervisors can't make it move. But the point is how we've got Sierra Club, we have you, we have 350.org, we have a Department of Environment, which is pretty special to have in the city. So what does that look like for all of us working together more? And I can just say that these panels, for me, have allowed me to think more intentionally about those potential partnerships. And I would just like to invite all of you as well to help us think about that. And I'd like ideas as well.
Well, would now be a good time to bring up that summit, the global summit, because they want to bring together, you know, lower level government and non-government.
Do they really?
Yes.
I'm just looking at their website, it's not really clearly.
No, so their
Appears to
website
be-
would not. We're working on our own sort of public-facing website to talk about what community can do because it's not visible. So, but you were going to say something.
Well, I think I'll just speak for myself. I don't speak for the rest of the club. But I do think that conversation with club members, there's an interesting dynamic now, which is that because of what's happened in DC, getting cities and states to stand up is now actually incredibly politically important. And quite frankly, I think a lot of cities and mayors and governors were hiding underneath Obama's skirts on this, right? If you follow what he actually pledged in the Paris Agreement, it was weak sauce, but sort of in the name of momentum and building forward, we all got behind it. Yeah. So that's gone now, and so I think, quite frankly, you know, it's the political work is not just important for taking care of our own house in a way, but it's also basically the most important work we do nationally. And so I just think that so this kind of, you know, as you're talking, collaborative, cross-cutting, blah blah. I feel like I'm just talking in rhetoric now, but is important.
It is important. It is. I'm part of a network of 165 cities around North America who have sustainability directors. It's called the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. And I decided after Trump got elected that I needed to do something, that being the bubble inside the bubble, which is San Francisco, just wasn't enough for me. And so what I decided to do was take a leadership role on this network so that I could help especially cities, blue cities and red states, which are a lot of university towns, it just turns out, figure out how they can make a statement and mobilize within their own states to show what's possible. And not that San Francisco has it all figured out. I mean, obviously we don't, but we've got such permission to take risks here. So how can we help others that can't take those risks know what is the proven, easy thing, the next thing to do, and how to make the case, the financial case, because that's really what it always boils down to. So I do think that it does sometimes seem trite to talk about this kind of partnership, but there's power in it if we do it right. And Sierra Club is such a champion for the Beyond Coal initiative. I mean, they are the voice on this. 350.org has been an incredible leader on what are the practical things that people should do and can do, and then how do we use the financial system to our advantage. So you've got incredible power there. Cities working with that and having you push us is the best. That's the best of the world. When you push us to say, you need to do more.
I will say, we just did, the Sierra Club did our mayoral candidate interviews. And, so we gave each candidate a questionnaire, but then we also asked each candidate 4 follow-up questions in person. And, absolute climate change, those top 4 questions. Because we really wanted to double down, and let them know, we care about this so much that we're going to use a personal interview with you.
Is that published?
Yeah, where is that? Yeah.
No, it's not published. The Sierra Club endorsement will be coming out pretty soon, and that will be published.
What, can you tell a question that you asked? Or 2?
Yeah, I think I can tell you the question back because I drafted it. But I can't say what the answer is. I think we said, given that climate change is the most important issue for the nation, and given that what's happened in DC, what benchmark do you think San Francisco should set for leading other cities?
Did you include Amy Farah-Weiss in that?
She was one of the people we interviewed. We interviewed Mark
Thank you.
Leno.
Okay, so just kind of coming in conclusion, it's 8:54 now, not 8:56, I think. I don't know how phones can be slow, but I did it like that. Just kind of moving forward, I think if you're interested, we'll post the video of this on our website, like we did the first one, so you can go back and take a look at it. We'll send, if you gave us your email address, we will send you announcements for some of the things going on, including the Global Climate Summit. You can keep us up to date on what you're doing.
So we have a sign up back there. If you
Great.
want.
Great, so we have a sign up and back, make sure you signed in. And
No,
just,
but about the summit.
yeah, and then continuing, we have the Clean Power Plan listening session, and it's all day on the 28th of February from 8:30 in the morning to 7:30 in the evening. So going there would be great. At some point, I'll put out an email on that.
And it's probably going to be a big press event, a rally, so that's where we'd love to get.
That's the EPA.
If you can tell us when you're,
Yeah.
no, it's
EPA.
an EPA listening session at the library.
Yeah, but if you can't make it, you can write a comment.
You can write a comment,
It would be good to show up.
you can show up and make a comment, and then if you can tell us if you know the time.
Do we know?
I think the time of the rally is going to be about 10 a.m. Could slip to 11 a.m., but most likely
I
10
can
a.m.
slip to 11 a.m. I've got all these canvassers and they just don't get up that early.
So 10 a.m.-ish, it will be on the steps of City Hall. It'll be February 28th.
Okay.
And it's very much going to be a rally, and there will be a large turnout.
That's great.
Where exactly is it at? Where is the?
Main library.
Main library.
In the Corrette downstairs.
So downstairs, the big auditorium downstairs.
The rally's in City Hall, the hearing is at the main library, so very close.
And I also want to mention, there is a mayoral forum tomorrow with about 10 progressive organizations, and it's just a block away at the Women's Building, starts at 6, goes till 9, and we have, I think, 4 or 5 candidates maybe there.
At this point, London is not showing up.
Really?
How'd that go?
She couldn't clear her schedule.
Conflict of schedule.
So that's just something, and we had one question, I think we're gonna think about the question based on tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
And,
we get to ask SF tomorrow gets to ask a question.
So there's so many groups, they only get like one or half a question, so we've been kind of having a tug of war over asking just one question. Think about you tonight. Can you really narrow it down to one? That's something else, if you have time tomorrow and in the neighborhood, drop by, get a chance to listen. Starts at 6.
Yeah.
And I think Jane Kim is the first person there, might be the first interview, so it's gonna be half-hour blocks with the.
Right, it's not a debate, it's
Yeah,
That's right.
just questions.
Right.
So anybody who has, yeah,
Have they published the sequence of who's going to be speaking? You said Jane Kim's going to be first.
I think she's first, I don't know.
totally know.
I don't actually know.
Okay.
Because London dropped down and they tried to.
Yeah, they're kind of trying to futz things around to cover that little blank they have from London not coming. So anyway, I think that's all that we have. I'd like to thank my panelists. You guys have been fantastic. Oh yeah, does have any closing remarks?
Oh, yeah.
I think we're talking a lot, but
I think we solved the